The wreath on the door looked like a crown of plasticized leaves, too perfect, like everything inside. The hall exuded the smell of wax and eucalyptus, the floor shining as if someone polished it with shame. My mother checked the table for the third time. Inherited porcelain, cutlery aligned like soldiers, napkins held in golden rings. Discreet and elegant, she repeated like a prayer. My father adjusted his tie in front of the living room mirror, practicing that smile that shows no teeth, only control. I, standing in the pantry, felt the kitchen calling to me like a cage. The sizzling butter pan, the browning turkey, the meticulously chopped vegetables, nothing out of place except me. "Today you stay back here, okay?" she said without looking at me. "You know, your loose hair draws attention and those flags on linked. Don't embarrass us." The word fell with the weight of a porcelain platter on stone. I held my breath. The hired waiter handed me a tray with glasses and a trained smile. "Ma'am, would you serve?" I smiled back politely and took the tray. The crystal tinkled in my hand. Small, ironic music. In the living room, my parents circulated like professional hosts, whispering instructions to the staff. Lower the lights, a softer jazz soundtrack, no controversial conversation. My father's phone vibrated. "He's here," he said, and it was as if the whole house straightened its spine. The CEO walked down the hall with two assistants, in an impeccable suit, the kind of presence that makes people confuse money with a blessing. My mother took one step more than she needed to. My father opened his arms as if receiving a royal relative. "It's an honor, doctor," he said, exaggerating the title the man didn't have. The reflection in the glass of the china cabinet returned the scene. Me in the background, tray in hand, hair like an unauthorized crown. It was curious how the glass always shows who the room forgets. In the pantry, on the marble countertop, I saw the place cards. I came across my name in a smaller envelope. Inside, nothing. Just a note, in fine handwriting I would recognize even with my eyes closed. "Daughter, avoid." I wanted to laugh out loud, a rough laugh that would break a chalice. I didn't. I took out my phone and photographed the paper, the handwriting, the light from the lamp making the "avoid" shine like fake gold. I saved it. Archiving is a form of breathing. I took the glasses to the living room. The garden, beyond the sliding door, was a catalogue. Fairy lights, white iron chairs, a lawn cut by someone who understands measuring appearances. The rehearsal for the toast began before the first glass. My father, with a poised voice, speaking of a clean trajectory. Merit. A family that doesn't like trouble. The word "clean" bit my skin like cheap cleaning product. My mother, over her shoulder, made a subtle gesture for me to lower the tray. I obeyed. That's how we communicated. Silent codes, halftones. I learned to read that score before I learned algebra. The waiter brought me another task. "Can you replace the candles on the side?" I went to the sideboard. The flame flickered at the slightest breath, and for a moment I thought of blowing them all out with one puff, leaving the room in dim light. Instead, I aligned them like tired soldiers. I had a memory. Me little in a Christmas photo, hair tied back so tightly it hurt, my mother whispering, "Smile with your eyes, honey, the teeth are too much." I took a breath and returned to the present. The laughter from the living room sounded like clinking dishes. Polite, hollow enough not to stain anything. The CEO walked through the photo gallery in the hallway. In none of them was I whole. In my high school graduation photo, my shoulder. In the Easter photo, a blur of my dress. In my 21st birthday party photo, just the reflection of my hair in a window pane. He praised the beautiful, so united family, and my mother bit her lip, satisfied, as if she had given birth to the word. My father, with the prosody of an advertisement, said, "Our daughter is brilliant, just intense." Today she preferred to stay backstage. I heard it from backstage. A lie, said with affection, is still a lie. The kitchen was buzzing, and I felt the urge to plunge my hands into dough, a kneading that soothes, a repetition that organizes. Instead, I leaned against the cold stone sink, let the water run for a moment, just to hear a sound that wasn't salon conversation. The waiter returned solicitous. "If you want, I can stay here and you can rest." I shook my head. I'm fine. He looked at me with a respect I didn't expect, as if he understood everything without me saying a word. From the garden came the toast. Our community is an example, my father said, raising his glass. I peeked through the crack. The men around the CEO, the right tie, the right laugh, the women in shades of nude, French manicures, their whole bodies a rosacea of good manners. Someone commented on people who don't know how to behave on social media, who ruin their own careers. My name wasn't said, but it was heard. That's the trick. They draw you with formless words, and you recognize yourself even without an outline. I looked at the note again. Avoid. I thought of everything they had trained me to avoid. Braids, questions, a loud voice, tables where I wasn't the first to stand up to clear the plates. Inside my purse, my old startup badge scraped against my fingers, the plastic already worn from opening so many doors that weren't made for me. I felt a small, fierce pride. I had built other doors. The doorbell rang again, more people, more expensive perfume, more giggles and almost military greetings. My mother rushed past me, her mascara intact, her cheeks high with anxiety. Smile, she said without looking at me. And so I did. Mail. For whom? For a wall. For the specter of the daughter they invented. The one who knows when to shrink. I pulled back the curtain and captured with my phone the moving room. The CEO pointing at something on the wall, my father nodding, my mother adjusting an invisible thread on the rug. I tapped the photo to zoom in, and the glass of the china cabinet returned me as a ghost. I felt a small snap, not of anger, of clarity. I wasn't going to argue that night. I was going to remember. On my wrist, my smartwatch vibrated as if an extra heart was attached to my skin. The notification came up calmly, the subject in bold. Official announcement. Sunday 10 a.m., Integration Town Hall. Opened it. The text, concise, said it all. Confirmation of the new position, the legal signature, the CEO's invitation. My finger hovered over the screen, and for a second, the sound of the whole room went silent. Breathe. The kitchen smelled of butter and lies. The future there smelled of metal and possibility. I put away my phone, aligned the glasses on the tray, and walked out of the pantry towards the living room, with measured steps, my whole body present. If they wanted to keep me backstage, they had chosen the worst possible week. And yet I walked in silence. Because sometimes justice begins without noise, just with a saved proof and a door waiting to be opened. I got home after midnight. The sound of my heels echoed in the hallway of my building, rhythmic, precise, as if each beat said, "I'm still here." I opened the door and was greeted by the clean silence of my apartment, a silence that didn't erase me, that belonged to me. The first thing I did was turn on the light on my desk. There was my small battlefield. Cork boards, colored folders, post-it notes, a mug with pens of different thicknesses, T the top, a title I wrote months ago, Archive of Existence. I sat down, took off my earrings, and began the ritual. I picked up my phone, opened the photo of the note, daughter, avoid. I zoomed in. I observed every curve of the handwriting, the light pressure of the pen, the hesitation at the end of the R. I pointed my laptop camera at the screen and photographed it, archiving the archive. Then I dragged the document to the main folder, among the other proofs of a lifetime of subtle exclusions. Folder 1. Messages and comments. Folder 2. Family invitations without my name. Folder 3. Corporate evidence, microaggressions. Each file a piece of my skin transformed into data. At the top of the cork board, I wrote in pen. They want to be remembered as a discreet family. I want to be remembered as truth. I opened the notebook and played an old audio of my mother. Honey, don't talk too much about these things today, okay? There are important people at the event. We just want to avoid embarrassment. I stopped the audio before the end. The same tone, the same polite sweetness she always used when she wanted me to disappear without seeming cruel. Sweet like poison mixed in tea. My hands were steady. I created a new folder on the computer and named it Family, Corporate Mode. In it, I saved everything that showed how they talked about me when they wanted to seem polished. She's intense. She has strong opinions. She's a promising young woman, she just needs tact. Varnish language. prejudice camouflage. I learned that when someone says intense, what they really mean is, you remind me that I'm racist and I don't want to deal with it. On the other side of the desk, a different folder. Work. Silence mode. Messages from executives praising my results in private, but ignoring me in public meetings. One of them even wrote, "You're great, but sometimes you project a very striking image." I laughed, alone, loud enough to break the weight of the sentence. Striking. Another word they use when they can't say, "too black to fit in here." I took my journal and wrote. When I was little, my mother used to say that being invisible was a form of security. I grew up and learned that invisibility is just another name for non-existence. On the shelf, an old photo watched me at 9, starched uniform, a huge smile, my hair braided by my grandmother behind, a note from her in crooked handwriting. "Don't forget to be seen." My grandmother always understood. The clock read 2:17 a.m. My body was tired, my mind awake. I opened my work email. Subject: Town Hall. Sunday, announcement agenda. My name was among the top 3 topics. Tomorrow, I would be officially introduced as General Manager of Data Platforms. The same position that arrogant CEO had mentioned with pride during dinner, without knowing it belonged to me. I felt something shift inside my chest, a mix of anger, dignity, and a cold peace. Not the peace of someone who forgives, but of someone who understands the game and decides to play better. I took a sheet of paper and drew a map. In the center I wrote, the table. On one side, arrows. Family/neighborhood/church. On the other, company/media/society. In the middle, a red line connecting the two worlds. The image. The curse and the currency. That's what they always controlled. The image. And that's what I had learned to master. I pressed the rec button on the recorder and started talking, more to myself than to anyone else. What they call shame is what I call presence. And what they call humility is what they use to silence me. I closed the recorder, saved it as Proof Diary 01 on the screen. The family folder seemed to breathe. Inside it, hundreds of small memories now had digital weight, form, time, and stamp. Proofs that I existed even when they tried to erase me. I stood up, went to the window, and looked at the city. The buildings shone like glass aquariums, each one with someone pretending to belong somewhere. I, for the first time, wasn't pretending. As I closed the notebook, I thought of something simple, almost poetic. My last name, so common, always sounded more theirs than mine. But from that morning on, I would turn it into a document. Before sleeping, I left a sticky note on the corner of the screen. Sunday, 10 a.m. You don't need to prove anything. Just show up whole. And before turning off the light, I whispered to the void. They don't know it, but the stage they tried to deny me is already set. If you've ever been pushed out of a story that was yours, subscribe, because we're going to talk a lot more about this. And every forgotten voice deserves to be recorded. My phone vibrated with a new notification. Sender. Neighborhood Committee, Charity Gala. Subject. Main table confirmed. Mr. and Mrs. Almeida plus CEO guest. Below, a line scrawled by hand, my name. Crossed out in blue pen. The next morning, the sun pierced the blinds in thin strips, like bars of light. I spent a few minutes looking at that pattern on the wall, thinking about how my whole life I had been taught to fit into spaces like that. Strips of clarity between long shadows. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and started reviewing what I called the controlled damage plan. It wasn't revenge. Not it was cataloging the small absurdities that everyone said were nothing. These things, when they accumulate, become a structure. And a structure, when it pushes, hurts. I opened the family group on my phone, United Family, and found the usual sequence. Photos of orchids, good morning messages, and advice on being grateful in silence. Among the emojis, a hint. My aunt commented. Some people have everything and still want to stand out, right? Humility is knowing your place. My father reacted with a thumbs up. My mother replied with a white heart. I took a deep breath. I took a screenshot. I saved it in the family/structure folder. As the computer started its automatic backups, the memory came like a flash. Me at 16 with my natural hair for the first time, and my father saying, "It's beautiful but maybe too rebellious for school." The teacher called it bold. The girls laughed. And back then I still apologized. I returned to the screen and opened the spreadsheet that the neighborhood committee had mistakenly sent me. The Excel sheet was proof of the social choreography that governed that community. Column A, family names. Column B, financial contributions. Column C, reserve seats. Column D, observations. I scrolled until I found our last name and the gray highlighted row. It read, all made a family. Keep daughter away from the main table. Avoid direct contact with CEO. Discreet participation. The cursor blinked over the file as if mocking me. I didn't need to change anything. I just took a screenshot and saved it in the neighborhood/protocols folder, so I renamed the file. I realized that the words discreet participation were, in fact, a coded compliment. I always participated. They just wanted to make sure no one noticed. I went to the closet and took out an old box. Inside, newspaper clippings, certificates, math Olympiad medals, yellowed photos. Everything my parents kept with pride. Until the moment my color started to clash with the display case, and the same box, I found an old church pamphlet, with a photo of them smiling. The text said, example of a traditional couple, pillars of the community. No mention of me. Not a line. Not even only daughter. Just life dedicated to service. I smiled to myself. Service. A word that always suited us well. I opened my notebook and wrote the title. The Grammar of Respectability. I listed the verbs most used against me. Lower, soften, adjust, control, please. Below, a note. When they say it's about good manners, it's about who defines what good is. I looked at the mirror hanging on the wall. The reflection showed a woman in her 30s, kinky hair tied high, attentive eyes, a tired and firm body. For a second, I thought of how my mother always said, you talk with your whole body, Nara, it's too much. She never understood that I talk with my body because their silence always forced me to gesture to exist. I took last night's note, daughter, avoid, and pinned it to the edge of the mirror. Below, I stuck a white sheet and wrote with a red marker, do not avoid. The contrast was beautiful. And painful. The phone vibrated. A message from my mother. Good morning, love. Remember to behave at the association event. There will be many important people. We just want what's best for you. The last sentence made me laugh. What's best for me always meant comfort. I put the phone aside and went back to the notebook. I started organizing the files as if I were assembling a documentary. I opened a new project in the editing software and imported the family, neighborhood, and work folders. I dragged the screenshots to the panel. One by one, the photos formed a sad mosaic. Events where I was cut from the frame. Meetings where my name was not listed. Comments deleted before they became a fight. As I watched that silent collage, I realized that my story had the texture of an archive. That's what I knew how to do best. Turn pain into data. And there, between clippings and folders, I began to see the design of the turnaround. If they wanted to control the narrative through appearance, I would show the cost of it. The dirt hidden under the rug of appearances. I took a red pen and wrote at the top of the page. When respect is used to hide racism, it's not a virtue. It's varnish. I pressed Save Project. I named it Operation Clean Image. I felt the weight of the word clean, and for the first time it didn't hurt, because now it was mine. As the computer loaded, the email dinged. Sender. Audiovisual Team Charity Gala. Subject. Hi Nara, someone sent me the rehearsal speeches of your parents. Do you think you'd want to see them? For a second, the world was suspended. My breath caught in the middle. I smiled slowly. I opened the email. The attached file had a simple but promising name. All made as A4. The video opened in silence. The first image. My mother in front of the living room mirror, adjusting her pearl necklace. The camera was shaky. It must have been recorded by someone from the event team. She took a deep breath and rehearsed the smile I had known since childhood. The smile that says, everything is fine while everything hurts. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, looking at her own reflection. It is an honor to receive Dr. Martins in our home. Our family has always believed that success is the result of discipline, faith, and discretion. She hesitated. The tone of the word discretion came out like a butter knife. Cold, smooth, sharp. My father appeared in a dark suit with a paper in his hand. Honey, change discretion to silent work. It sounds more elegant. She smiled. Better. And she began again. Our daughter Nara is a talented professional, just a bit intense. She prefers to stay backstage, taking care of the technical side. Pause. The complicit look between them. Laughter in the background. Someone comments. Yeah, these young people today. Strong opinions, right? My father laughed along. But the important thing is that she understands that the family is the center. The image comes first. I stopped the video. I let the cursor blink for long seconds. My breath came short, then long. Play again. Now they were in the garden, testing the tone of the toast. We are proud of our clean and solid trajectory, he read aloud. A woman from the team interrupts. Do you want to include the daughter in the final speech? My mother replies without thinking. Oh, better not. She's involved in some causes. We don't want to divert the focus of the night. Embarrassing silence. Causes. The word fell like an official seal of exclusion. I rewound the video to the beginning, downloaded the file, and saved it in the family/rehearsals folder. I named the clip. Causes of 4. My finger trembled, but not from anger. From precision. I opened another file, this time from my own professional folder. Internal presentation video from the startup before the merger. The CEO, the same one my parents wanted to impress, was saying, the most strategic mind on the team. Nara Almeida, she's the one who translates chaos into results. He laughed, genuinely. The audience applauded. This woman here saved us from losing a $30 million contract. That's not talent, it's leadership. I paused. That I rewound the sound of my mother calling my achievements, causes. I cut and overlaid it on the video of the CEO praising me. The contrast sounded like a documentary soundtrack. Perfect irony. While the rendering was running, I opened my notepad. Mini-doc, the image and the mirror. I jotted down ideas. Clip 1. Note daughter avoid. Clip 2. Audio don't embarrass us. Clip 3. Rehearsal, clean trajectory. Clip 4. CEO saying she's the one who leads. Clip 5. Fade out with a sound of applause, final caption. Some images clean too much, even erasing people. I saved the file and stepped away from the screen. The night swallowed the window of my office. Outside, the buildings looked like glass mirrors, cold, transparent, unable to reflect the soul inside. The glow of the monitor was the only beacon. And for the first time, I didn't feel small in the face of the word family. I felt power. The power to show what had always existed but no one dared to look at. I picked up the phone and dialed the number of the sound technician from the event company. The same one who appeared in the messages exchanged in the committee's group chat. He answered on the second ring. Hello. This is Nara Almeida from the Cedros neighborhood. You're handling the sound and video for the dinner, right? Yes, ma'am. Great. I have a short file I need to test on the projector before the ceremony. Just 2 minutes. No problem, I can fit in a test. Before the toast, perhaps. Perfect. I'll send it to you tomorrow. I hung up and smiled. That IT wasn't angered, IT was an orchestra. I picked up the phone again. And there it was. A new email from the company's HR. Subject. Confirmation of attendance. Leadership announcement. Body of the text. Congratulations, Nara. Your promotion will be officially announced at the town hall tomorrow at 10 a.m. The same content will be reiterated at the neighborhood event in the evening, where the CEO will be present. I let my eyes run over the lines to the end. The irony was perfect. They tried to hide me. On the very day the world would be forced to see me. I took a sheet of paper and wrote, in large letters, so I wouldn't forget. They're going to watch their own reflection. Whole. Then I closed the notebook, turned off the light, and stared at the ceiling. I heard my own breathing slow down, turning into a rhythm. IT wasn't hatred. Not yet revenge. IT was a kind of justice in incubation. And as sleep began to weigh me down, I thought, what is more cruel than being called a shame by those who pride themselves on a lie? The sound of the notification cut through the dark, a message on Slack, directly from the CEO. I need you on stage with me tonight. We're going to announce the new leadership program. Come on, boss. The CEO's notification was still blinking on the phone when the alarm went off. My body was tired, but my mind was sharp. As if something inside me had finally found the right tone of silence before the storm, I put on my favorite white shirt, the one I always wore for the toughest interviews. I applied my wine-red lipstick, a shade my mother would call exaggerated, and tied my hair in a firm, high, imposing buns. I looked at myself in the mirror. I realized that the reflection no longer asked for permission to be occupied. On the way to work, the car radio played an old song, one of those that talk about patience and destiny. But all I could think about was how used I had become to fitting into spaces that never wanted me whole. The company was the biggest example of this. 15 years of exemplary work, undeniable results, but always one step below where I deserved to be. It was the price of being the well-behaved exception. As I entered the building, I noticed the looks. Not hostile, but curious. The news of the promotion was already spreading through the hallways. A colleague approached me with a forced smile. "Congratulations, Nara. It was about time, wasn't it?" She said about time as if she meant unexpected. I replied calmly, "Yes. It took a while, but it's here." The mirrored elevator reflected her discomfort more than mine. In the alignment meeting before the event, the CEO seemed calm. "Tonight, the whole neighborhood will see what we are as a company. Progress, inclusion, results. You'll be with me, right?" I nodded that he smiled genuinely, without knowing how much irony that sentence carried. Progress. Inclusion. Words my family used as decoration, and the company as marketing. But that night they would have a body. During lunch, I received a message from my mother. "Honey, please, no long speeches, okay? It's a delicate dinner. Dr. Martens is an influential man. We need to make a good impression." Good impression. Always this showcase vocabulary. People like her measure love in reflections, not gestures. I looked at the phone for a few seconds before replying. "Don't worry, Mom. I'm just going to show who we really are." I sent it and left the phone face down. At the end of the workday, I sat in my office and watched the video of my parents rehearsing the toast again. This time, without anger. Like someone studying a phenomenon with coldness. The way my mother twisted her mouth before saying, "Discretion." The satisfied look on my father's face as he repeated, "Clean trajectory." It was all a play, and they believed they were the protagonists. What they didn't know was that the script was now mine. I opened the video editor and finalized the cut of the mini-documentary. The last scene was simple. Me walking through the company corridors while the CEO's voice echoed, "She's the one who translates chaos into results." Fade to black, text on the screen. Chaos is the name they give when a black woman refuses to fit into silence. I rendered the video and exported it in 2 formats. One for the corporate event, another for the gala night. Both had the same base file, but the second included my parents' rehearsal, with their polished phrases, and the clip of the CEO calling me boss. The contrast was cruel and perfect. I put the flash drive in a small velvet box. On the back of the lid, I wrote with a golden pen, "For those who always wanted to erase me with too much light." Before leaving, I called Marina, my assistant. "I need you to take this video to the sound technician at the event tonight. He'll know where to fit it in." "Of course, boss." "But what is it?" "A projection test," she smiled. "Understood." As she left, I looked out the window. The city seemed suspended, buildings, cars, horns, all spinning in slow motion. I thought about how long it took me to understand that my story wasn't about acceptance. It was about presence. Being accepted is asking for permission to exist. Being present is occupying, even when they don't want you there. The clock read 5:42 p.m. I picked up my bag and blazer, so I closed the office door. I felt a serene strength run through me. It wasn't hatred, it was purpose. Before getting into the car, I stopped for a moment, looked at the reflection in the glass, and said softly, "Tonight they will see me." If you've ever been diminished for being too strong, like this video and tell us in the comments, what was the moment you realized you didn't need to ask for permission to exist? As the car moved down the avenue, the phone vibrated on the dashboard. A new message from my mother. "Honey, we arrived early. The doctor is already here. Please don't come with that extravagant outfit you like." Underneath the sentence, a smiling emoji. And right below, another notification from the sound technician. "File received, Nara. Scheduled for 9:30 p.m. Projection confirmed." The main hall was bathed in a golden light, the kind of calculated glow designed to look elegant, but which always reminded me how much these parties were made to dazzle and not to welcome. The tables were covered with white linen tablecloths, the cutlery meticulously aligned, and an expensive scent of artificial flowers mixed with the overly sweet perfume of the guests. The sound of clinking glasses created a symphony of control. Nothing there was spontaneous. Not the smiles, not the hugs. I entered with firm steps, observing every glance that turned to me. Some disguised surprise, others simply looked away, and my mother, from a distance, hardened her face for a moment. I recognized the movement, the slight raising of the eyebrows that said, "Straighten up," without needing words. My father, next to her, adjusted his jacket, trying to look busy. The gesture said it all. Shame disguised as protocol. "Honey, you came," she said, her voice slightly too loud, forcing a naturalness that didn't exist. I smiled. Of course. I wouldn't miss the chance to see Dr. Martens. The CEO's name cut the air like a cold blade. I saw her gaze twitch, quickly, almost imperceptibly. The hall was full. Among the guests, familiar faces from the company, influential neighbors, and of course, Dr. Martens himself, surrounded by laughter and wine glasses. He saw me first. "Ah, if it isn't my star," he said, opening his arms. My parents' expressions froze. I hugged him, feeling the weight of the moment form in the air. "Star." My mother forced a laugh. Looking at the others, the CEO turned to her. "Is the most brilliant mind in the integration project. Nara is one of the best leaders I've ever known. If we're here celebrating today, half the credit is hers." The murmur that ran through the hall was like silent electricity. My father pretended to smile, but his jaw trembled. The official photographer approached. "Family photo?" he asked. The CEO nodded. "Of course. Our new director's family deserves the spotlight." The words echoed through the hall like a muffled shot. "New director." I saw my mother swallow hard, trying to keep her smile. The flash lit up our faces, and for the first time the light didn't erase me. The dinner continued between speeches and applause. My parents talked little, too busy containing their embarrassment with each toast. I noticed the irony of fate. The same audience that once saw me as the inconvenient daughter now whispered compliments about my exemplary trajectory. The same audience my parents wanted to impress. At a certain point, the master of ceremonies announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, before the main toast, we will have a brief audio-visual presentation, a tribute to the families that build our community." The sound technician gave me a subtle look from the booth. Damn, my heart beat firmly. It was the beginning of what was to come. My mother turned to me, smiling tensely. "I hope it's nothing controversial, honey." The sentence came wrapped in sweetness, but carried the usual fear. The fear that I would tell the truth. I just replied calmly, "It will be unforgettable, Mom." The lights dimmed. The projection began with images of the neighborhood. Children playing, families posing in front of their houses, voices narrating about unity and values. The familiar faces filled the screen, and people smiled, proud. Then suddenly the tone changed. My parents' rehearsal audio came on. "Our daughter Nara is talented, just a bit intense. Better not to include her in the speech. She's involved in some causes." The silence was immediate. The faces turned towards me. Then to them, and my mother's expression froze in the middle of a smile that broke. The sound of my father's restrained laughter echoed from the recording, like a ghost. The screen cut to the CEO at a lecture. "This woman here saved the company. She not only delivers results, she inspires." Recorded applause filled the hall, and over the image the text. "Some images clean too much, even erasing people." The lights came on, the silence was heavy. And for a moment, no one knew whether to clap or take a deep breath. My mother tried to say something, but her voice failed. The CEO broke the ice. "Strong message. And true." The applause came, first timidly, then completely, filling every corner of the hall. My parents remained motionless. It was as if the ground beneath them had changed texture. It was no longer the carpet of elegance, it was glass cracking under their own feet. If you've ever had to prove your worth twice and still been erased, like this video, your support helps other women tell their stories too. Beach balloon. In the middle of the applause, my mother's phone vibrated on the table. She looked at the screen and turned pale. The contact name flashed in capital letters. Dr. Martens, CO. The same man who was still on stage with me. The sound of the phone vibrating on the linen tablecloth sounded louder than any applause. My mother was paralyzed, her face pale, her eyes fixed on the illuminated screen that reflected in the wine chalice. The name flashed. Dr. Martens, CO. Repeating at intervals like a divine provocation, she looked at the stage, where Dr. Martens himself was greeting me with a serene smile, unsuspecting of anything. Her hands trembled. It was the kind of discomfort that money and prestige cannot disguise. The audience was still commenting on the presentation, between compliments and whispers, when my father leaned towards her. Sylvia. Turn that off. But it's the doctor. Turn it off. The tension between them was palpable, fear seeping through every gesture. But it was too late. The noise had drawn attention. The CEO turned his face, curious. Is everything all right over there? He asked, with the microphone still in his hand. My mother swallowed hard, clutching the phone as if holding a confession. Yes, of course, sorry. It must be a mistake. He smiled politely. Mistakes happen, but here we always try to understand why. Polite laughter filled the air, but the color had already drained from both their faces. I watched in silence, my hands firm by my side. Nothing needed to be said. Their embarrassment was already doing the work for me. It was like watching the mask dissolve in slow motion. When the dinner ended, the hall dispersed into groups. I stayed with the CEO, exchanging impressions about the event, while my parents took refuge in a corner. From a distance, I saw the disguised desperation in my mother's hurried gestures, trying to explain something to my father, as if he could rewrite what everyone had just watched. The CEO called me again. Congratulations, Nara. Your video was brilliant. Authentic. We need more voices like that, especially coming from someone like you. The phrase someone like you could have hurt in another context. But there it sounded like a triumph. I smiled. Thank you, doctor. I just wanted to show that appearance without truth is just expensive makeup. He laughed, satisfied. Exactly. As the lights began to dim and the guests said their goodbyes, I walked over to my parents. They were sitting side by side, motionless, surrounded by empty plates and crumpled napkins. My mother was the first to speak, without raising her gaze. Why did you do this, Nara? Her voice was a trembling whisper, but it contained anger. Because you taught me never to embarrass the family. I replied calmly. And today I didn't embarrass. I showed. She raised her face, her eyes teary and cold at the same time. You destroyed everything we built. I just illuminated what you hid to build. My father tried to intervene. This was unnecessary, honey. Your mother just wanted to maintain harmony. Harmony. I laughed, but without humor. The one where I'm left out of photos, speeches, plans? Where you call me intense, so you don't have to say what you really think. The silence that followed was more honest than any answer. The orchestra was dismantling their instruments in the background. The empty chairs creaked on the marble floor. My father sighed and stood up, trying to regain his composure. Let's go home. But my mother remained seated. She looked at the floor and murmured, You never understood how hard it is to be respected when you have a daughter like you. That sentence, said in a low tone, cut the air with the precision of a blade. I stood up, motionless. The world seemed to stop. I took a deep breath. You're right, Mom. She raised her eyes, confused, thinking I was giving in. I never understood. Because I spent my life trying to be respectable in the eyes of those who were ashamed of me. And now I understand. Respect from someone who is ashamed is not respect. It's control. I walked away slowly, my steps firm in the echo of the hall. Each step seemed to tear away a piece of the weight I had carried for years behind me. I heard my father say something low, but it no longer mattered. I had learned not to turn back when someone called me just to diminish me. If you've ever been told you were too intense, too different, or hard to deal with, leave a like. These words are usually said when our light bothers those who live in shadow. As I left the hall, I felt the cold night air on my face. The sound technician was waiting for me outside, holding the flash drive. Your video was the talk of the night. He smiled and handed me something else along with it, a white envelope. This was left for you in the dressing room, with your name on it. The name on the back was handwritten, elegant, and made me stop for a second, Dr. Martens. The envelope was thick, made of textured paper, the kind used for contracts and secrets. The name Nara was handwritten, in a firm, elegant script that seemed to belong to another time. I opened it carefully. Inside, there was a single sheet and a golden corporate card. The paper smelled of expensive perfume and decision. At the top of the page, the company logo. Below, just 2 lines. Your vision is what this company needs to see tomorrow. I want you at the head of the new Image Council. Signed, Dr. Eduardo Martens. The cold wind blew through the parking lot and messed up a loose strand of my hair. For a few seconds, I stood motionless, watching the lights of the hall inside. Those lights that, throughout my life, had kept me on the outside, as if I were a shadow now, they seemed too weak in the face of the clarity that came from within me. I put the envelope in my purse and looked at the sky, a mix of exhaustion and victory. But the feeling wasn't sweet victory, sometimes, tastes like a held-back tear. On the way to the car, I thought about how many times I had wished for that recognition. How many nights I had turned over spreadsheets, written reports, endured meetings where my ideas were rebutted until some white man repeated them, and only then did they become brilliant. I thought of all the times my parents asked me to speak more softly, be less direct, seem nicer. They thought they were protecting me. But they were pruning me. I sat in the car, let my head fall back against the headrest, and took a deep breath. The image of them sitting at the table with lost gazes wouldn't leave my mind, a part of me, the girl who still wanted to be held. Felt pity, but the woman I had become knew. Regret is not redemption. The phone vibrated, a message from the family group. My father had sent an old photo. Me as a child in a school uniform, holding a certificate. The caption read, "Proud of our girl." I felt a lump rise in my throat. Right below, my mother's reply. She was always brilliant. We just took too long to see it. The words hit me hard, not with pain, but with realization. They were trying to rewrite history, to erase the embarrassment with pretty phrases. But I learned, you don't heal a wound by pretending it never existed. I took a deep breath and muted the group. It wasn't time to respond. It was time to decide what to do with the power that, for the first time, was in my hands. I took the laptop I always carried with me and connected the flash drive with the video. I opened the editor and added a new clip. The footage from the event, the exact moment the CEO praised me in front of them, and then a cut to a black screen with a simple sentence. When they say you embarrassed them, it's because they still haven't understood the reflection of their own cowardice. I saved the file with a new name, rewritten for. I sent a copy to the CEO's corporate email with a short message. The truth is the best marketing. Then, I attached the same video to an anonymous email and directed it to the event's website, which would broadcast the images of the night on the community's social media the next day, subject of the submission, so that everyone can see what respect really is. I closed the notebook and my heart beat rhythmically, without haste. Revenge no longer felt like revenge. It was just justice with a digital signature. As the car moved through the empty streets, the light from the lampposts passed quickly over the glass, alternating shadow and glow, like a living metaphor for my own journey. Each flash reminded me of a name, a comment, a stifled laugh, and each darkness reminded me of what I had to endure in silence. If this story touched you, share it. Because every woman who has been silenced deserves to see that one day the voice returns, and it returns louder. The car clock read 11:58 p.m. when I stopped at a red light, my hands on the steering wheel, my gaze fixed on nothing. It was then that the phone vibrated again, a message from an unknown number. I saw your video. It was brave. But be careful, Nara. The truth doesn't always set you free. Sometimes it exposes too much. I raised my eyes, my heart racing. The screen illuminated the dark interior of the car. Signed, Martens. I looked in the rearview mirror. A black car, headlights on, had been keeping the same distance for 3 blocks. And for the first time that night I realized, exposing the truth can have a price that justice alone does not pay. The rearview mirror turned into a mirror of threat. The black car was still there, constant, like a shadow with an engine. The first reaction was fear. Cold, thin, running down my spine like a wet blade. But it didn't last long. Fear in me was always a brief visitor. I accelerated slowly, disguising my nervousness. The avenue lights reflected on the windshield, creating golden phantoms that seemed to watch me. I picked up my phone and opened the message again. The truth doesn't always set you free. Sometimes it exposes too much. Martin's IT was impossible to know if it was a warning, a threat, or admiration. Either way, it was power. And power, I learned, is neutral. It depends on who holds it. I turned right and entered a busier street. The car behind slowed down. I stopped at the corner gas station and got out, feigning normalcy. The attendant approached. "Fill it up." I nodded as the tank filled. I discreetly looked at the street. The black car passed straight by, disappearing at the next intersection. I took a deep breath, my heart still racing. It wasn't paranoia. It was instinct. And the instinct of someone who has spent their life defending themselves from gazes is the same as the one that detects danger before the noise. Back in the car, I sat with the engine off and let the silence occupy the space. Inside me, two forces fought. The woman who just wanted to rest, and the strategist who knew the game wasn't over yet. I picked up my phone again. The screen lit up with notifications, emails, mentions, messages. My video was already circulating. Someone had downloaded and reposted it. The community's social media exploded with comments. Some called me an inspiration. Others ungrateful. But everyone without exception was seeing me, and being seen for me was always the first form of justice. In the middle of the messages, a voice audioed. I recognized my mother's number. I pressed play. "Honey, we saw the new video. People are commenting, the whole neighborhood. Your father is not well. Did you have to expose us like that? I know we were wrong, but did it have to be in front of everyone?" Her voice trembled, oscillating between hurt and guilt for a moment. I closed my eyes. There was no pleasure in hearing that. Just a bittersweet feeling. Finally, she was feeling what I had felt for years, the weight of being looked at without control over the gaze. I replied with a short text. "Mom, shame is not what we showed, it's what we hide and pretend doesn't exist." I sent it no regrets. The truth didn't need apologies. Suddenly, a new message appeared. This time from the unknown number. "Nice speech. But do you really think the world will applaud you for humiliating your own family? Be careful who records and who pays the bill for the light that illuminates you." I deleted it without replying. I knew how to recognize intimidation when I saw it. And I also knew that, when the light bothers, the shadows organize. The clock read 12:47 a.m. when I parked in front of my building. The doorman looked at me with that mix of curiosity and respect, the look of someone who realizes something has changed, but doesn't yet know what. I went up the elevator in silence. Each floor seemed to weigh more. Upon entering the apartment, I took off my shoes and went straight to the balcony. The city was sleeping, but the sky had the same tone as the nights when it all began. That thick, almost metallic gray. I picked up my phone and recorded a short video. I looked straight at the camera, without makeup, without a filter. Today they called me ungrateful, for telling the truth, for showing that love without respect is just a more elegant type of submission. If this is ingratitude, then let us all be ungrateful, because silence has always served them more than us. I posted it with a caption. #truth is not shame. I closed the phone and let the cold wind touch my face. Down below, a black car stopped for a few seconds at the corner. Headlights on, engine running. Then it left. I didn't look twice. I went inside, locked the door and sat on the sofa, my body exhausted, but awake. In the reflection of the turned-off TV, I saw my face, tired, but alive, and behind it, the ghost of the girl who once asked to be seen. Now she was. If you've ever been called ungrateful just for taking a stand, share this story. Sometimes telling the truth is the only way to break the cycle of shame. The sound of a notification cut through the silence. A new email, anonymous sender. Subject: "The story isn't over yet. See you tomorrow at the council." The email blinked on the screen, with that tone of provocation that only those who hold information use. "The story isn't over yet. See you tomorrow at the council." Signed. No name, no footer, no identifiable IP. I stared at the message for long seconds. Outside, the early morning took a deep breath. Distant cars, a dog barking, the muffled hum of the city that never sleeps, but sometimes pretends to. I closed the notebook. It wasn't time to react with fear. It was time to live up to what I had built. I lay down, but sleep didn't come. The images of the night repeated like burned slides. My mother's face, my father's choked voice, the CEO's smile, the glow of the video reflected in the crystal glasses. Everything perfect, and at the same time grotesque. I had broken the varnish, and varnish, when it breaks, cuts. The dawn came slowly, tinting the ceiling a cold blue. I got up, made coffee, and looked at myself in the kitchen mirror. The dark circles seemed like medals. The scar of a fight that wasn't physical but historical. I put on a dark, discreet suit, tied my hair up, and put on my shoes as if I were putting on armor. Today would be the day of the council meeting. The same one where the CEO had promised to make my new position official. And, apparently, the same one where someone wanted to remind me that power comes with an audience. In the building's elevator, I ran into Mrs. Ruth, my elderly neighbor. She was holding a bag of bread and gave me a small smile. "I saw your video, Nara." Silence. Too strong. I thought criticism was coming, but she added, "Thank you. I have a granddaughter. Black like you. Now I know what to say when someone says she talks too much." That broke me down inside. That I smiled, emotional. "Thank you, Mrs. Ruth. Well, thank you for speaking up." I got into the car with a heavy and light heart at the same time. The city seemed different, or maybe it was me. For years I had walked those streets with my head down, imagining that discretion was survival. Now I realized it was erasure. And erasing oneself is not humility. It's self-exile. I arrived at the mirrored building of the company and went up to the 18th floor. The doors of the meeting room were ajar. From inside came the buzz of voices, papers being flipped, glasses on the table. When I entered, everyone stopped for a moment. There were various looks, respect, curiosity, and some of pure annoyance. The CEO smiled, inviting me to sit next to him. "Nara, welcome. We were just discussing the proposal for the new corporate image program. Your vision will be central to this." I nodded, maintaining a professional tone, but feeling the symbolic weight of that moment. As he talked about social responsibility and diversity narratives, I noticed something curious. On the glass wall behind us, the reflection of the group showed more truth than the environment itself. There, in the transparencies, I saw who was really listening, who was rolling their eyes, who was smiling out of convenience. I took the floor. "Before we talk about image, I'd like to talk about integrity." The silence fell, some shifted in their chairs. I continued. "Because it's no use looking diverse if the structure continues to exclude those with a different color, gender, or voice. Image is a consequence. What matters is the reflection, and the reflection never lies." The CEO looked at me attentively. Some directors exchanged tense glances. But no one interrupted. I felt that, for the first time, my voice occupied the entire space without an echo. I finished by saying, "If you want a campaign that seems true, start by making sure the truth fits at the table. All of it." The CEO clapped slowly. "That's why you're here, Nara." I felt the air thin, but light. It was the kind of recognition that didn't come from approval. It came from inevitability. They had no way of ignoring me anymore. As the meeting continued, I noticed an envelope identical to the one from the night before on the table. In front of me, no name. Just a fine inscription. "To be opened after the session." The cold touch of the paper made me shiver. It was the same perfume, Martin's. But he was there, smiling next to me, giving a speech, as if he knew nothing. "If you believe that occupying spaces is the most silent and powerful form of revenge, like and comment. Every woman who speaks up opens the way for another to breathe." The meeting ended with applause. That I waited for everyone to leave. I opened the envelope. Inside, a printed photo of me, getting into the car the night before. And a sentence written in pen. "Be careful what you record. Not every lens is on your side." The photograph chilled me. The image was too sharp. My face reflected in the car window, my hair tied up, my tired gaze, the silver ring on my index finger, a perfect click, taken without permission, and the bottom right corner, the time. 11:58 p.m. The same moment I had stopped at the traffic light and received the message from Martins. The feeling was physical. My stomach contracted, the air became dense, and for a moment, the floor seemed to tilt. It wasn't a coincidence. It was surveillance. And the difference between recognition and control, I realized, was an invisible line that could move without warning. I closed the envelope and looked out the window of the meeting room. The mirrored glass returned a version of myself that no longer knew if it was a reflection or a target. Martins was still in the corner, talking to two directors. He smiled when he saw me watching. His smile was courteous and dangerous, like a contract without written clauses. I put the photo in my purse and left the room and the hallway. The LED lights flickered slightly, creating shadows that danced on the walls. I felt something ancient invade me, that ancestral distrust that black women carry when they realize that the power granted is also a leash. In the elevator, the polished mirror reflected the weight I was trying to disguise. This was no longer the story of the rejected daughter. Now it was the game of the observed woman. And in this game, being naive is to die on your feet. In the parking lot, the black car was parked a few meters away again. The same model, the same glow of headlights. I stopped, took a deep breath, and turned on the phone's recorder before approaching. The driver's door opened slowly. A man in a dark suit, an anonymous face, got out. He looked at me with a rehearsed calm. "Mrs. Almeida." "Yes." "Delivery from the corporate security department. Mr. Martins asked to ensure you arrived safely." He handed me a silver card with the company logo. I smiled, without emotion. "Tell Mr. Martins that I know how to take care of myself. And that his gaze is not security. It's a reminder." The man hesitated, confused, then got back in the car. The vehicle left without hurry, disappearing into traffic. I got into my car, my hands firm on the steering wheel. I drove, the ideas organized like pieces on a chessboard. Martins had promoted me, praised me publicly, but now he was watching me. Why? Because real power is dangerous when it has no visible owner. And at that moment, perhaps I was the only element outside his control. I stopped in front of my building, but I didn't go up. I stayed in the car, watching the city lights reflect on the hood. I picked up my phone and entered the hidden video folder, the automatic backup from the camera. There were recordings I didn't even remember making. Screenshots, clips of meetings, short audios. And among them, something new. A file dated from the night before. Title: Commander's Office_recording dump P4. I pressed play. The image showed the company's control room, Martins, talking low on the phone. "Yes." She reacted as expected. The exposure worked. Now the public trusts her. And in her they trust me. Silence. Then discreet laughter. Let her believe she's freed. No one destroys a structure alone. Sometimes, you just need to give the revolt a stage, and then take care of the show. I stopped the video. The sound of my own blood echoed in my ear. It was no longer paranoia. It was calculated manipulation. I had been part of the show I swore to unmask. I closed my eyes for a moment. All the contained anger, the humiliation, the wounded pride. All reorganized now into a new kind of lucidity. If he thought he could use me as a symbol, he was about to find out that I also knew how to play. I took the laptop, connected my phone, and started editing a new video, without haste. Frame by frame, his speech, the sound of his laughter, the applause from the dinner, the proud faces, the cold eyes. Every piece of that lie in high definition. Provisional title: Who controls the image? As the file rendered, I sent a short message to the sound technician, the same one who had helped me at the gala night. "I have the material for the second act. Can you confirm the big screen for tomorrow's event?" The reply came seconds later. "Confirmed." And Nara. "Be careful. Powerful people don't like to be filmed." I smiled. The kind of smile that mixes fear and certainty, because sometimes to break a system you have to turn it into a mirror. If you've ever realized they've turned you into a symbol, but without giving you a voice, share. Every structure collapses when the showcase decides to be a lens. The computer beeped, rendering complete. On the screen, the title flashed in white letters on a black background. Premiere. Image Council, live tomorrow, 7 p.m. And below, the company's own logo. The next morning was born heavy, humid, with the air smelling of electricity before a storm. The sky, a metallic gray, reflected the same tone as the company's mirrored building. I looked up and thought, it's curious how power always tries to look like the sky, unreachable, distant, reflecting everything but showing nothing. I got in the car without music. The silence was absolute, almost sacred. On the passenger seat, the closed notebook and the flash drive with the final video, the last move of my story. The plan was no longer revenge, it was restitution. Of image, of truth, of me. When I arrived, I found the parking lot crowded. Journalists, cameras, reporters. The event would be broadcast live on social media, with the presence of shareholders, investors, and the press. It was the official debut of the Image Council. The perfect stage for those who think they control narratives. And the ideal ground for those who have learned to rewrite them. I walked through the flashes with firm steps. Some employees whispered. Others looked away. But there was something new in the air. A kind of nervous respect. That woman who once served coffee and was invisible in meetings was now the center of it all. At the entrance, Martins was waiting for me. Impeccable suit, calculated smile. The charisma of someone who confuses manipulation with leadership. Ready to shine, Nara. He said. I smiled back. More than ever. We entered the auditorium together. The audience applauded when the master of ceremonies announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, we begin the new phase of our company. Transparency, representativeness, and truth." Perfect irony. The spotlights came on. The sound technician looked at me discreetly from the back of the room and gave an almost imperceptible gesture. A thumbs. Everything was ready. Martins began his speech. He spoke of progress, diversity, and trust, as if every word had been rehearsed in front of a polished mirror. I waited, breathing slowly. The moment he said, "Our image is a reflection of who we are," I nodded to the technician. The lights dimmed. The giant screen behind us came to life. First, images of the company. Smiling, institutionalized, clean. Then the sound changed. The office recording began to play. Martin's voice. Yes. She reacted as expected. The exposure worked. Now the public trusts her. And in her they trust me. Let her believe she's free. No one destroys a structure alone. The hall became an abyss. The faces froze, the flashes ceased. Martins, still on stage, stopped breathing for a moment and next to him looked at the screen, serene. The recording continued. His laughter echoed in the ambient sound. Then, the video showed the images from the dinner, my parents' rehearsals, the fake smiles, the gazes of those who live by appearance. And finally, the final text in white letters. Image is power. But the reflection is justice. Lights on. Absolute silence. Martins tried to say something, but his voice failed. The reporters raised cameras, microphones, cell phones. The audience murmured, incredulous. I took a step forward. For a long time, the truth was used as decoration. Today it is a mirror. And I'm not afraid of what it shows. The sound of applause came like a wave. First timid, then growing, then deafening. Martins left the stage, pale, swallowed by his own reflection. At the end of the event, as people were still commenting, the interim CEO came to me. "Do you understand that what you did can change everything, Nara?" I replied calmly. "No. I just gave back what was already ours." Outside, the wind was lighter. The sun was beginning to break through the clouds. I opened my phone. Notifications, messages, interview requests, hashtags with my name. But what really made me smile was a discreet notification. New signature added to the project. Sylvia Almeida. My mother. And her comment. "The truth can hurt, but it's the only thing that cleans without erasing." I closed my eyes. I let the air in deep, my chest light, my whole body at peace. The girl who was once called a shame now taught the world what dignity was. I walked to the car without haste. The light of dusk reflected on the building's glass, and for a second, I saw my face mixed with the city's. Multiple, alive, whole. I smiled. The lens was now mine. If this story touched you, if you believe that the true revenge is to be faithful to who you are, subscribe. Because when a black woman takes back her voice, she doesn't just speak for herself, she changes the sound of the world. And before starting the car, I murmured to myself, almost a whisper, almost a prayer. They tried to shape me in their image, but it was the reflection that won.